So when it comes to Los Angeles, what's considered Los Angeles, the actual city of Los Angeles, the fashion district, Chinatown, all of that, right? So it's what's considered the Los Angeles area. Then you have what's considered South Central. South Central is not really a real location, as I have mentioned. You have different, parts of South Central, even areas that is referred to as the low bottoms. But like I said, it's not an actual real geographical term. It's more of street lingo, that the street gangs, have labeled. As you can see, all the street gangs, from Bloods to, it's not just Hispanic gangs, because you can see, look at all these Crip sets and Blood sets. So you have just as many black gangs as you do have Hispanic gangs. So, the Avalons and, the Broadway gangs of Cribs and, oh, well, that's already heading into Inglewood on this side. But anyway, so the South Central portion area is a very large, portion of Los Angeles. So as was known as South Central, it doesn't really have a geographical actual pinpoint location because, like I said, it was street terminology. It was street lingo that was considered South Central, but not actually something that you can look up and pinpoint, like let's say using Google or GPS or anything like that, right? Because it's an area that doesn't really exist. You get what I'm saying? Yes, I am aware that I left my location right there before anybody decides to mention it. You know, we tripping. So, like I said, the area is just jam packed. But what's actually considered South Central is not a real location, but it is home to a gang of neighborhoods and individuals, and not just street related, but even just a bunch of minorities, Asians, Hispanics, blacks. So it's an area that has been home to minorities since the very beginning of the area. You feel me? What's good, G Life? It's your boy MC Shadow back at you with another video. Make sure you guys like, comment, and are subscribed to the channel. It's absolutely free. That is how you help my channel get into the algorithm. Highly appreciate if you go ahead and do that. Don't forget to check out my second channel, Menace Society, M.O.D. That's Menace Society, M.O.D. That's where we go live and pretty much talk about anything and everything. Now, yesterday on my live, I had discussed about, a question I was asked right about, we were discussing, the South Central area, me and another individual. And, I told him that the area of South Central doesn't really exist. And he thought I was, bullshitting and stuff like that, right? So, to explain about that video or that discussion. So the area of South Central is not a real location. If you look it up, through Google's or, online, you're not going to be able to find it because it's not an actual place. South Central does not exist. South Central is a slang term. South Central is the name that the culture gave the area. What was the jazz culture when the area first began, because keep in mind that the area what is now known as South Central LA, which is South Los Angeles, the South Los Angeles area was an area that was filled with a lot of minorities, right? A lot of Japanese, a lot of blacks, and a lot of Hispanics back then. Not by choice, but by force, right? Segregation, right? They were only allowed to live in that area. Back then, people didn't have the luxury of being able to live wherever they wanted, right? The whites pretty much, forced them to only live within that area, far, far away from them, right? So that's where the minorities, which is Asians, Hispanics, because there was a lot of Asians, a lot of Japanese at that time. So a lot of Asians, Hispanics, and blacks grew up in that area. What is known as South Los Angeles, that they refer to as South Central, which is south of the fashion district, like I had shown in the beginning of the video, because the area is vast, right? And it is broken up into, several different districts in itself, right? Like the Florence Firestone district, the Hyde Park, and different locations, right? But what is all considered South Los Angeles. But as in the term South Central doesn't really exist. Now, in the street world, like when it be like, okay, well, what is considered South Central Los Angeles? Like, say, street terminology. It depends who you're asking, because people will say, different from street to street, from what's, Vernon to Crenshaw to Washington. But it changes. It changes. Depends who you're talking to, right? What they consider what South Central is, right? Even like terms like the low bottoms. Low bottoms is not an actual real term. That's street terminology that they call, the lower bottom of South Central, Los Angeles. You feel me? But like I said, this is all street terminology. So if you're talking to like people who are not street related, they're not gonna know what you're talking about because it's not an actual real thing. But I guess since the names and rap music and everything have made it so mainstream or made it so popular, people actually believe that these areas are actually called that or really named that when that's not the case. That's why when I said that there's no such thing as South Central Los Angeles, that was no disrespect. It's just that to regular day folks, it doesn't exist. But in the street world, yes, it's this is the area that they're proud of because the area where they grew up and they call home. A lot of individuals call South Central home. But like I said, it's not an actual place. That's just some kind of like East Los. East Los is not a real thing. It's just a phrase that people say, right? But it's East Los Angeles. But East Los doesn't. You talk to somebody, you look up East Los, you'll be like, what the fuck is East Los? You get me? But these are all street terminologies. Um, it's people grab the name of the city and they give it a their own twist to it. Remember, this was a time of jazz music and all these jazz bands, when that area was first starting, and the segregation, and you had a lot of the slang terms popping, because of the music, right? A lot of the slang terms were now trending. So that's how South Central started trending in the name, and it blew up, through these jazz bands, in the 1800s, right? But the area is considered South Los Angeles, and it's always been South Los Angeles, from Central, what runs through Central. But like I said, they consider South Central their home because, well, technically that's where they were forced to live. But that is, a small brief history of the area. But that's when I meant that it doesn't exist, meaning in the actual, sense, not in the, out in general, because you have the street world and then you have the actual real life world. So that's what that was all about. But overall, that's just my thoughts. What are your thoughts? Leave it in the comments. Did you guys know about that, or did you guys really think that there was called South Central? Let me know. Leave it in the comments and chat away.